I'm going to talk to you today about my story, and the title of my talk is My Office is 1A. Now, I can see a lot of question marks in the room. You're already wondering what on earth is she talking about. And I will come to that, but first I must start in the beginning. So this is the beautiful family that I was born into. This is how I started my life. And this was my father. He was one of my greatest teachers in life, in that he taught me a life lesson very early on in life. So I was 17 years old, with stars in my eyes, going to school in Robert College. Like many of my classmates and my friends, I actually had the idea, as I was graduating from Robert College, to continue my studies in the US. So I went to my father with this idea. And my father, when he first heard the idea, he was quite a wise man and, well-educated man. So probably the idea appealed to him on a rational level. He could sort of see the sense of me going to US to study. However, he was also a typical Turkish father, quite protective and also with a lot of traditional values. So probably it scared him a lot to actually even think about his young daughter going at 17 years old to study in the US. So he devised a very clever plan. He was a very, very clever man. So what he told me was this answer. He didn't say no to me, but he said, of course you can go, but you have to find a scholarship, because I'm not able to support you financially, and if you can find a scholarship, then I will let you go. Probably he was thinking in the back of his mind that I would never be able to find a scholarship, so that was sort of his way out of the dilemma without saying no to me directly. What he didn't put into the picture was that this was like waving a red flag to a bull. I'm a pretty determined person, and when I focus on something, I actually get it done. So what happened was I started focusing on this, and with the help of my wonderful mother as well, her moral and physical support, I started applying to universities and looking for scholarships. And I found not only one, but actually two scholarships, one from the university in the US, and another one from Robert College itself. So I actually had a full scholarship to go to university in the US. I didn't have to ask for any kind of money from my dad. So I went back to him, and I told him this, and he was probably a bit shaken. I don't think he expected this outcome. But he was also a man of his word, and he didn't go back on his word. So at 17 years old, I found myself on a plane for Atlanta, USA. I ended up on this beautiful campus where I spent 4 years. Really a fantastic experience, probably one of the best 4 years of my life. But I had learned a very important life lesson from the experience, and that was never to give up, to go for my dream at all the cost, to push the boundaries until I achieved what my goal was. So it was an important learning for me in life, and actually it helped me a lot as I entered the workforce and started to work on my career, because this is what companies demand from people. They expect you to be goal-oriented, and this was a big plus in the business world, I can tell you. The other thing that was true for me is I'm a very organized person. I like to control things. I have a natural ability for being able to do this. I like to plan things ahead, like I'm sure many of the ladies in this room. And that was a strength for me as well. And that was also rewarded very much by the business world, because that's what the business world is looking for. So a combination of two things, persistence on the one hand, organizational skills and control on the other hand, and I started really climbing the ladders of my career quite fast as a combination of that. I married this fantastic man when I was 24 years old, and of course, I was already having the responsibilities and the demands of my career, but on top of that, now I had a household to run. And of course, I used the same set of skills that I used in the business world to running the household, a lot of organization, a lot of control, a lot of planning, and sort of started to manage in this way. By 2003, I had perfected this craft. So I was sort of very in control of my life, I thought, when another great teacher came along. And this is her. Now, the lesson out of her was a very interesting one, because I was in the last months of my pregnancy, and I had planned the day that I would give birth to the latest, finest detail. she decided to come 2 weeks early. So all my carefully laid out plans went to waste. They went out the window, and I had a totally different experience to what I was expecting. A wonderful experience, but very different to what I planned. And actually, for the first time in my life, I had an inkling that maybe you cannot plan everything in life. Actually, a notion which Deniz actually reinforced every single day with the unpredictability of raising a child. Continue on. In 2007, actually something fantastic happened to me. I became a vice president of marketing for Unilever Turkey, where I worked, and a board member of Unilever Turkey as well. I was very happy because it was quite a big honor. I was the second woman to enter the Unilever board in the 60 years of the company in Turkey. And I was also the only female board member at that time. So I was very honored to be in that position. But also, I was really starting to struggle with the demands of running a household, having a small child, and also having a quite demanding career. In 2009, I was at the peak of my career and really sort of trying to manage this life when we decided to have our second child. And she did arrive. This is Defne. And of course, she arrived at a time which was really a bit of a complex time for me, because 1 month after she came, I lost my father. And it became a very difficult year for me in the end, because I was really starting to struggle now with all this complexity, the demands of the household, demands of the career, all the emotional trauma of losing a very valued person in my life. And I started to feel really, really like, you know, I was losing the plot of it. At that time, my stress levels were very high, and I was having also physical symptoms. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't breathe. So that led me to something which became very important in my life, because I started to do transformal breathing. And that opened up a whole new world in front of me, because through transformal breathing, I actually met yoga and meditation, started to practice those regularly, and all of a sudden, I started a new journey, this time inside myself. I started to think about my life, my patterns, you know, what brought me here, really a lot of introspective things. I've been always a very intuitive person, and I have to admit, I started to do this in a very intuitive way, but in all the 3 years of doing a lot of energy work, meditation, yoga, that kind of thing, I was actually intending to do one single thing alone, and that was learning to let go. So my intention was always the same. No matter what I did, I wanted to be able to learn to let go. So as it is usually the custom in these things, the universe heard me loud and clear. So we fast forward now to 2012, very defining year in my life. When I started the year, I was actually living the Turkish version of the American dream. I had a fantastic family, 2 beautiful daughters, wonderful husband, successful career, the golden retriever, you name it. But I was very unhappy inside, because I was finding it very difficult to cope with this life. I was physically and emotionally feeling the stress a lot, and I didn't know how to sort of get out of this, because from the outside, it looked like I had everything that a person could ask for. And I was even feeling a bit guilty for not feeling happy when I had all these things, but I just didn't, you know, feel very happy. So the answer came to me in the form of a wonderful friend, Ipek, and she invited me to a Coming Into Your Own seminar. This is a fantastic couple of days I spent. They created a very nurturing and a very fantastic environment for me to actually start looking into my life with a fresh way. I had the opportunity to deconstruct and reconstruct my life. And at the end of those, I believe, 3 days, actually what happened was my answer was very clear. I needed some time to myself to look at my life, to think through, to understand what my purpose in life was, to understand what my place in this world was. And so my answer was very clear. I needed time. So on Monday, I walked into my boss's office, I was surrounded by, lots of good wishes, a lot of positive energy from my coming into your own ladies, all my support group. They were sending me a lot of support. And I walked into my boss's office, and I told him that I wanted to take 5 months of work. Now, at the time when I went into his office, I actually was taking a big risk, because my career may never be what it was before. But to be honest with you, I didn't care, because my life was more important than my career. And I have to say that when I actually went and made that declaration to him, it was the most powerful, calm, and serene I had ever felt in my life. I felt like I was taking control of my life. So I went and told him this story. And he actually agreed to it, because once you have clarity, you know what you want to do, and when you're fully in flow, things happen. You don't have to struggle a lot for it. And so basically, he accepted my offer, and I vacated my position. I wrote this letter to the whole company and said goodbye for 5 months and vacated my position. I was thinking that this was a very, very purely personal thing. I was pretty naive in that way. I thought it wasn't a decision that concerned anybody, and I thought I'd explained myself enough. However, that wasn't what happened. Actually, this became a major piece of news with a lot of speculation around it, and I heard a lot of things. On the one camp, there were the people who thought I was a very silly woman who didn't know what she had, and I was just throwing my career out like this. On the other hand, there were people who were very envious of me. They kept on coming to me and telling me how they wanted to do the same thing. There were some people who were my real friends. They were very happy with me. They supported me. They thought I was being very brave. And then the last group, there were people who actually refused to take it at face value. And they started doing a lot of rumors and speculation. I even heard things like I was terminally ill and I had 5 months to live, and that's what I was having. I mean, it feels funny now, but at that time it hurt a bit, actually. So anyway, decided to close my ears and just continue down my path, because I had decided on doing just that. So at that time, I'd set a vision for my life, and this is my vision picture. And I spent the 5 months that I had in my hands actually trying to make this vision come alive for me. It was a very introspective period. I was continuing doing a lot of energy work, yoga, meditation, all the things that I'd started to want to do. But not only that, I also did other things that I'd been putting off and wanting to do for a long time. I used to be a sailor when I was young, and I hadn't sailed for years. So I called up another good friend. She's the flotilla skipper in Marmaris. I called her up and I said, I'm coming to sail with you. So she said, fantastic, just come over whenever you want. And I started to sail in these beautiful places with her. And actually, during all the sailing, I was constantly looking inward, trying to understand me. I was meditating and just really trying to form my life story again. I also had another wish that I wanted to fulfill, and I'd always physically wanted to be at a TED conference, never had the chance or the time to go. But during my sabbatical, I actually went to TED Global in Edinburgh. But it was a very different experience, because for the first time in my life, I actually had the time and the leisure to go take a train ride through the English countryside and go to Edinburgh in 6 hours instead of trying to find the shortest flight and the easiest connection. Other thing I did was, there are about 60, 70 sessions in TED. I attended every single one of them, uninterrupted by emails, meetings, demands of business life. So it was a fantastic experience. I've also been, well, I guess by now you understood, I kind of like to experiment things. So I've always been curious about Ayurveda. You did introduce me to it. And I went to this fantastic place in England where I went to an Ayurvedic institute for Panchakarma and learned about that. And then we moved to Alaçatı with the family, with the kids, for about 2 months. And I really blended into local life. This is Melahat teyze. She's a fantastic, fantastic lady, and she taught me to cook Aegean dishes. when I was in Alaçatı. But I did really enjoy being part of a small place and living in this really closely knit community for that time. So a lot of things happened. But I guess the most important lesson was coming my way. And the most important lesson was, if you let go and you are in flow, things happen the way they should without any struggle on your part. Now, during those 5 months when I was away from work, I really did not worry about the next step in my career at all, because, you know, I just sort of thought about it. I thought about the things that I would want to do, and I thought about what kind of a career step I would want to take, but I never worried. I just intended and let go. And then the most amazing thing happened because I got offered the biggest promotion of my career as a global vice president of OMO. So it was actually the biggest promotion step for me, and the amazing thing was the whole thing took about 3 days to happen. So from start to finish, it was the fastest promotion I ever had. So just to give you a little bit of perspective, OMO is the second biggest brand of Unilever globally, and it exists in 78 countries and counting. I actually, at the moment, have a team that is spread across Sao Paulo, Mumbai, London, and Singapore. And it's just an amazing experience, a marketeer's dream, because it's a truly iconic global brand and a position that offers me a lot of experimentation and new learning. So that brings me back to the point. I travel a lot, and therefore my office is really 1A. This is the view from my office, as you can see. But it actually is an amazing experience going around the world and experiencing all these things. Like you see, I have amazing experiences going around the world and meeting a lot of interesting people. So a lot of people ask me when they hear this story, do you get tired? You know, do you get tired doing the job that you're doing? Because I'm traveling a lot, and I do have a pretty high-stress job, probably the highest-stress job that I've ever had until now. But honestly, I don't, because I deal with it very differently now. I actually take care of myself. I don't try to plan and control everything. I've learned to let go when necessary. The other thing that's important for me is I've learned to accept imperfection in myself and in others. I have the freedom to be imperfect, and others have the freedom to be imperfect as well. So that was a very important lesson for me. The other question I get asked a lot is, would you have preferred not to have gone through the experiences before your sabbatical, you know, not to have experienced the discomfortable days before the sabbatical? And I honestly wouldn't, because the depth of learning that came from those days is very important for me. That's what made me who I am today. So in yoga, when you do yoga, you have to complement an asana with its exact opposite. That's what brings you into balance. That's what centers you. And I believe the same thing is true in life. So my lesson in life was learning to unlearn. I had to learn to be in control before. Then I had to learn to let go. I had to learn to unlearn. And that was the biggest lesson for me out of all of this. The other lesson that was loud and clear as well was to learn to lean into my circle. I have a fantastic family, very good friends, and if it hadn't been for their support, I wouldn't have been able to do this. And to learn to ask for help and to learn to get support, that was a big lesson for me as well. And I guess the biggest lesson out of all of this is that learning never ends. I have another good friend who says tekamül. It's a Turkish word that means constant learning. And that's why I want to be the perpetual student. Thank you.